The rain had been falling for hours, the kind that soaks through skin and memory alike, when the sound cut through the storm, a thin, broken cry that didn't belong to the wind. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't human, but it carried something heavier than thunder. It sounded like fear trying to survive. By the time the Navy SEAL heard it, his boots already sinking into the flooded grass, he had no idea that this single cry would drag him back into the darkest corners of his past and force him to choose what kind of man he still wanted to be. Before the story goes any further, pause for a moment. If you believe that kindness can change lives, that second chances matter, and that even the smallest voice deserves to be heard, take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because people still care. The man moving through the rain was not wearing a uniform anymore. His hair was shorter than most civilians, his posture still rigid, but the war had officially let him go 3 years earlier. His name was Ethan Cole, former Navy SEAL, now just another man trying to figure out how to live without a mission. The rain didn't bother him, he had slept in worse storms, in worse places. What unsettled him was the sound. It came again, sharper this time, trembling with desperation. Ethan stopped near a row of identical white houses, the kind that looked peaceful from a distance but hid more stories than anyone admitted. The cry came from behind them, from the open field where the rainwater pooled and the streetlights flickered like they were afraid to watch. As he moved closer, his instincts took over, the ones he tried to bury every day. The grass gave way to mud, and then he saw the puppy. It was small, soaked, its fur plastered to its ribs, eyes wide and shining with panic. It wasn't barking. It was whining, almost pleading, turning its head again and again toward something Ethan couldn't see yet. The puppy took a few steps toward him, then stopped, spinning back and pulling at something invisible, as if begging him to follow. That was when Ethan noticed the rope. The sight hit him harder than any explosion ever had. Tied to a black metal pole, barely visible through the curtain of rain, was a German shepherd. Older. Larger. Blood streaked through her wet fur, mixing with the rain as it ran down her legs and pooled at the base of the pole. The rope was tight around her neck and chest, cutting into skin already raw. Her body trembled, not from aggression, but from exhaustion and pain. Her eyes, though, were still alive. Still fighting. The puppy rushed back to her, pressing its small body against her side, crying louder now, as if the rain itself had finally listened. Ethan froze. For a second, he was no longer in the neighborhood. He was back overseas, kneeling in the dirt beside a wounded K9 who had taken shrapnel meant for him. He could smell the blood, feel the weight of helplessness. His hands clenched before he realized they were shaking. He forced himself to breathe, slow and controlled, just like he'd been trained. This wasn't a memory. This was happening now. He moved fast. The rope was rough, cheap, tied with careless knots meant to hurt, not hold. His fingers worked through them despite the rain numbing his skin. The mother dog didn't growl or snap. She barely reacted at all, except to lift her head just enough to look at him, as if asking one silent question, "Are you real?" When the rope finally loosened, her body collapsed, saved only because Ethan was already there, lowering her gently into the mud. The puppy pressed in again, licking her face frantically, crying as if it had been holding its breath this entire time. That was when Ethan heard laughter. It came from behind the houses, sharp and ugly, carried by the wind. 2 young men stepped into view, wearing red jackets, soaked but unconcerned, one of them gripping a baseball bat like it was a toy. They were pointing, laughing, shouting things the rain mercifully swallowed before they could fully reach Ethan's ears. He didn't need to hear the words to understand. He'd seen cruelty before. It always wore the same empty grin. Something in him snapped, not into violence, but into clarity. He stood slowly, placing himself between the dogs and the men, his body calm, his eyes steady. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He didn't need to. The way he stood told a story all its own. The laughter faltered. The bat lowered slightly. One of the men took a step back, suddenly unsure why this stranger in the rain felt more dangerous than anything they had planned. A shout came from farther back. A third figure emerged, running, soaked head to toe, his face twisted with fury and panic. He wasn't dressed like the others. His clothes clung tighter, heavier, like someone used to discipline rather than chaos. His eyes locked onto the dogs first, then onto Ethan. The moment stretched, rain pounding the ground like a drumroll. Ethan didn't explain himself. He didn't have to. He crouched again, lifting the mother dog with practiced care, ignoring the pain shooting through his own back. She whimpered softly, not in fear, but in relief. The puppy followed, refusing to leave her side. The man who had been running slowed, his expression shifting as reality replaced whatever story he had been fed. The two younger men began to protest, voices rising, excuses tumbling out in a mess. Ethan looked at them once, just once, and it was enough to silence them. The rain felt colder as time passed, but something else warmed the air: consequence. Sirens approached in the distance, faint but growing louder. Someone had called it in. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe the storm itself had finally had enough. The men in red jackets started to back away, their earlier confidence dissolving into panic. They didn't run far. Ethan stayed where he was, kneeling in the mud with the dogs, his jacket wrapped around the mother's wounds. The puppy climbed onto his leg, shaking, tiny paws pressing into his skin as if anchoring itself to the only solid thing left in the world. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He hadn't planned on staying. He hadn't planned on anything. But the rain kept falling, and the puppy stayed, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was waiting for the next mission to give his life meaning. Hours later, under fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic, Ethan sat on the floor of a veterinary clinic, still wet, still muddy, his hands resting on his knees like he didn't know what to do with them. The mother dog lay on a padded table, bandaged and sedated, breathing slow and steady. The puppy slept curled against her side, exhausted but safe. The vet spoke softly, explaining injuries, recovery time, possibilities. Ethan nodded, hearing every word and none of them. All he could think about was the moment he almost kept walking when he first heard that cry. As the storm faded into night, something inside him shifted. He realized the battlefield had followed him home not to haunt him, but to remind him. He had been trained to respond to danger, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten that this calling didn't end with a discharge paper. Days turned into weeks. The dogs healed slowly. The mother regained strength, her eyes brighter, her step steadier. The puppy grew bolder, tail wagging like it had never known fear. Ethan visited every day, then brought them home when they were ready. His house, once quiet and empty, filled with the sound of paws, breath, life. The nightmares didn't vanish overnight, but they softened, interrupted by warm bodies and unconditional trust. One evening, as the sun broke through clouds that had lingered far too long, Ethan sat on his porch watching the puppy chase light across the grass while the mother lay nearby, peaceful at last. He understood then that the cry in the rain hadn't just been a call for help. It had been an invitation. A reminder that even after everything he'd seen, he still had something to give. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can appear in the darkest storms, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive, reaching people who need them most. And before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment below and tell us what you would have done if you heard that cry in the rain. Your words matter more than you know. The rain eventually stopped, as it always does. But some echoes never fade. Sometimes, they curl up at your feet, look up at you with trusting eyes, and remind you that saving someone else might be the very thing that saves you too.